Hello, it's great to be back. This is the Crusader Historian coming to you with another video. And today is May 5th, or in Star Wars terms, Revenge of the 5th. And today I wanted to talk to you the about one of my favorite moments in the world of Star Wars. It is something little known about. And it's been something I've been thinking about. It is about, well, you can see right now, the Pius Dea faith as the one true religion of the galaxy. Rather unpopular thought, but let us begin. It was the first I am going to tell you what the Pius Dea religion is. It was the Star Wars equivalent of Christianity, the Catholic Church. And it is a religion headed by a goddess called the Goddess of Light. And they're with a battle cry, the goddess wills it. And she's a goddess that emphasizes moral purity in society, highly against evil actions like slavery, and it was responsible for several of the glorious periods in galactic history, the Pius Dea Crusades. Now, granted, this religion is mostly human-centered, but the reason why is because the humans were the first followers of this religion, followers of this creed. So anyway, I'm going to paint you a picture of the early era of the Galactic Republic, or the Old Republic. The Republic was not very big. It was centered roughly around this area, so not very big. And it was not going so well at all. In fact, they were being attacked by slavers, by pirates, and by aliens specifically targeting humans. And at a certain point, the Supreme Chancellor, a Supreme Chancellor who I believe was a Hutt, but do not confirm it, he was found taking bribes, and he was found taking bribes from criminal cartels, pirates, slavers, turning the blind eye, allowing this to happen, allowing people to get attacked. And it is at this point that a powerful figure called Countess Specs, who is a devout follower of the goddess, and he became vocal at clamping down on corruption, purging unredeemable evil elements to restore purity, and he received the backing of a lot of people. This is the crest of his house, who would later take the name Countess Specs in his honor. And he was talking about it. He said, we are going to do something about this, and drive all these wicked elements from our society. Well, he was assassinated by a bondman. Um, well, no, he was attempted to be assassinated by a bondman, but he was able to successfully get away. But he launched the first of what would be known as a great of the Pius Dea Crusades, which I find was the awesome. And after the assassination attempt, it and angered at the amounts of slavers, persecution of humans, persecutions of followers of the Pius Dea religion, slavers, crime, pirates. The Pius Dea religion got a lot of followers, and the rallying cry of the goddess of light was called "The Goddess Wills It." And so the faithful were gathered together. Many converted, many signed up. They built these grand, huge cathedral ships that you see right here, and they went to war. They went on a total of um, over 34 crusades, and during that time, it was, well, for the first time in galactic history, and I think the only time, the Republic actually did something. They fought the Hutts. They drove slavers out of the Republic. They drove pirates out of the Republic. They drew criminal cartels out of the Republic. And all this was done by the efforts of the brave women and men of the Crusades, devout followers of the Goddess of Light, who were determined to make their life a better place. And a very cool factor is this turned into a de facto dynasty. Contus Spex the first stepped down, and his son Contus Spex the second took over, and so this became a de facto ruling family. So everything was done properly, the wicked were driven away, and everything was going very well. And for the first time in history, the Republic was saved due to the brave efforts of these crusaders fighting against the evil beings of the galaxy trying to hurt them. But, and here's a big but, the expansions did not just drive them away, they even drive away threats that mostly seemed alien. However, the Crusades also allowed people to preach the word of the Pius Dea religion, and some species actually converted, like Wookiees. It related very well with the Wookiees, who were beings of honor, loyalty, they can keep their words, so it fits the idea of moral purity. And so this was a very good period. However, there was one organization that was not too happy about this, and it was the Jedi. Some people frame the Jedi as noble defenders of peace and righteousness, but that is not really true at all. In fact, the Jedi Order became jealous because they used to see themselves as guardians of peace and justice of the Republic. But the Republic, led by virtuous leaders, was doing the job for them. So, the Jedi Order engaged in several illegal acts of resistance against these crusades to curb pirates, enslavers, and also manipulated a heresy and created sabotage networks. Basically, the Jedi allowed slavers to exist, allowed aliens who tolerated slavers to get away with things in exchange for helping out. They even aided the Hutts, a species that is notorious for enslaving others. And they won. They won. They manipulated the Republic. They made a lot of outrageous accusations. They faked an assassination attempt on one of their own to garner public sympathy, and they infiltrated the Pius Dea sect, creating a schism which tore the church apart, and the Jedi stepped on it, and the sources say many people joined them, but in reality, it looks like, from what the sources say, they were written. The people that joined them were actually people that actually profited from evil deeds at worse, or were easily manipulative. Sort of the same as the people who would follow Adolf Hitler and his creation of the Nazi Party. And well, guess what? If you don't believe me, I'm going to tell you this. Instead of elections, so basically the Jedi Order first broke and destroyed and launched a coup on the Pius Dea sect, took over the Republic, and they took over the Republic. One of their own, the Grand Master, became the Supreme Chancellor, and all members of this sect were removed from all positions of the government, and their supreme temple was destroyed. This was a targeted act of religious persecution. And within generations, a few generations, this sect was hunted down and destroyed. This was not an act of pure good for the Republic. This was a cruel act of wickedness and evil done by the jealous Jedi Order, who wanted to be the sole arbiters of peace, justice, and moral purity in the galaxy. They could not stand having someone who could do their jobs, and so what did they do? They heartlessly destroyed them. And what happened to the galaxy with no Pius Dea crusaders coming to protect them? Well, slavery returned. The Jedi Order tolerated slavery as a whole. But if you don't believe me, look, by the end of the Clone Wars, or by the time of the Clone Wars, was Anakin a free boy or not? Or a slave? That's a rhetorical question. He was a slave. So the Republic and everything was back to square one. And I believe after that act of wickedness, the goddess of light withdrew her protection from the galaxy with the death of all of her followers. I mean, the Jedi performed a grave act of wickedness, but in her mercy, hoping for change, she delayed the punishment for as long as possible. And let us look at her real world counterpart, the God of Israel, who would later send his son Jesus Christ down to earth and die for the sins of all mankind. There was one king called Manasseh, who was called the most wicked king of Israel. And he's done great acts of evil, so much so that his grandson Josiah could not undo what was done. What Manasseh did from when he took the throne was, well, first off, he killed the great prophet Isaiah. He restored the old temples of the of the heathen gods, and let's be honest, after the children of tribes of Israel had a poor time with worshiping idols. I'll give them that, but that was forbidden by God. And it was split into two kingdoms, Judah in the south and Israel in the north. Israel turned their back from God, and after going through multiple kings, I say closer to 20 to 30, they were wiped out by the Assyrians. Judah had it better. Some righteous kings, but mostly wicked kings. Nevertheless, God showed mercy. But when Manasseh came to the throne, he killed Isaiah and attacked and killed anyone who worshipped the one true God. And despite the efforts of his grandson Josiah, Josiah could not undo the evil that has been done. Josiah was the last righteous king of Judah. The rest of the kings were cowardly or wicked or both. And eventually the bill came due, and Babylon came and destroyed Judah. And this was not the God sent the Babylonians and Assyrians to attack the wicked. Oh, no, no. It is God withdrew his protection from them. And he showed mercy, much mercy, a lot of great mercy. And why am I saying that? Well, simply put, throughout the thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years throughout history, despite her followers being gone, the goddess of light still showed mercy in the Star Wars galaxy. There were moments where things could be better. I mean, could her faith be revived? I don't know. Possible, but there were moments during the time of, say, Naomi Sunrider, Revan, don't know his name, but famed Republic officers, the great Jedi Lords of the new Sith Lords. But eventually, the bill comes due, and I would say the very moment she withdrew her protection was in the aftermath of the new Sith Wars, where the Jedi Lords, acting as true crusaders and heroes in their hearts, fought against the armies of evil. They bled, they suffered, they died. And what did they get as a reward? What did the Jedi Lords get? They were ostracized. And the Jedi Order became the corrupt institution that we see in the Clone Wars and in the prequel trilogy. But by the time of the Clone Wars, the bill ran due, and, well, what can I say? I say, after thousands and eons of holding off the punishment for the Jedi Order for contributing to the fall of her religion and persecuting it to the very grave was Order 66. Now, it is a tragedy the younglings and the Padawans died, but I would say this. The Jedi Knights and the Jedi Masters deserved execution on behalf of the fact their predecessors murdered thousands and millions of people in cold blood for their refusal to not worship a righteous deity. Eventually, the bill comes due. After protecting the Jedi in her mercy for thousands of years, no matter what they did, they turned their back on the great heroes. She withdrew their protection, and slowly but surely they stagnated and fell to the Clone Wars, which was their logical conclusion. Now, I will finish by saying this. Am I saying that Order 66 was a good thing? Well, I am no fan of the Jedi. I may have used to be, but not anymore. I will say I do not want the younglings or the Padawans to die, and I imagine the Goddess of Light will want the same thing. The thing is, the Jedi Knights and the Jedi Masters are the inheritors of this unjust act of persecution, and worse, they sanction it. So they lost protection and had to be meted out. And I will add this one more thing. The Jedi Order, they are not based on any semblance of Christianity. Maybe a little bit like the Knights Templar, but for every similarity, there are two differences. I will tell you one example. Yeah, they have strict vows, but the thing is, the Knights Templar, for example, you are not inducted into the Knights Templar as an infant. There is a process that you have to go through to be a worthy member, but you can grow up, you can live your life, and you can think, you know what, I want to be a soldier for God. So you can go in and do that. And also, some knights can, with permission, choose to marry in exchange for giving half their lands and wealth to the Templar organization upon death. So those are two rules that the Templars have. But the Jedi Order were mostly based off of samurai, Buddhism, which fits the whole balance of the Force thing. No attachments, one with the universe, and all that weird, crazy stuff. And the Jedi Order are just Shaolin monks with swords. That's all there is. Anyway, sorry I ruined your good afternoon, good evening with the Jedi. Happy Revenge of the Fifth. This is the Crusader Historian, and I'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.